everyone, it is Ashley. Hey everyone, it is your host Ashley with STM's Crime and Paranormal, and today we are going to talk about somebody by the name, well, he got his name, the Candyman. Okay, so this man's name is Ronald Clark O'Brien. He was born on October 19th of 1944 in Harris County, Texas. He lived with his wife, Daneen, I believe it's Daneen, in Deer Park, Texas, and he had a son named Timothy, who was born on April 5th of 1966, and a daughter by the name of Elizabeth, who was born in the year of 1969. Ronald had worked as an optician at Texas State Optical in Sharpstown, Houston, and was a deacon at the Second Baptist Church. Ronald sang in the choir and was head of the local bus program. So on Halloween of October 31st in 1974, Ronald O'Brien would take his two children, Elizabeth and Timothy, trick-or-treating in a Pasadena, Texas neighborhood. So the kids would knock on a door of a neighbor whom failed to answer. So the kids went ahead and would run along to the next house because they started to grow impatient on waiting for this person to answer. Well, their father, Ronald, would end up staying behind. So he didn't follow his kids where they went to the next house. But then he finally caught up with his children and showed them that he had 5 21-inch pixie sticks that he had claimed came from the home that the person didn't answer. So I guess he claimed that the person came out and ended up giving him 5 pixie sticks for the children. So it was the end of the evening on Halloween night when Ronald would give each of his neighbors 2 children a pixie stick, and then gave one to his daughter and one to his son. So once they got home, Ronald would give the 5th pixie stick to a 10-year-old boy that he knew from his church. So he gave 2 of them to his neighbor's kids. He gave 2 of them to his neighbor's kids, 1 of them to his child, which was Timothy, another to his other child, Elizabeth, and then he gave the last one to a boy that was 10 years old that he had known from the church. So Timothy asked if he could eat some candy that he got from trick-or-treating that night before he went to bed. So Ronald O'Brien says that his son had chose to eat the pixie stick. His son had issues getting the powder out of the straw, so his father would help by loosening the powder for him. And the pixie sticks, they have the smaller ones that are the paper pixie sticks, and then they have those really large ones that are in the plastic stick-like things. So it's not the paper ones. So the child, Timothy, had an issue getting the powder out. So it was kind of like stuck in the stick, and his father helped him get the powder out. But whenever Timothy tasted the pixie stick, he said that it had a bitter taste. So his dad, Ronald, would give him some Kool-Aid to wash away the taste of bitterness. Nothing unusual, you would think. Maybe it was just a bitter pixie stick that, kids can, So right after Timothy would eat the pixie stick, he would start complaining about his stomach hurting and run to the bathroom, and he started vomiting and convulsing. Ronald had claimed that he had held Timothy in his arms while he was vomiting and said that the child had just went limp in his arms. So he was holding his son Timothy, and he just went limp. Timothy would die while they were on the way to the hospital, less than an hour after he had ate the candy he had gotten from trick-or-treating, which was, of course, the pixie stick. So the death of Timothy would raise fear in the community about Halloween candy. Like, everybody was freaking out about their children's candy being tainted. Of course, what parent wouldn't be freaking out about the candy if a child was poisoned by candy? So a lot of parents that were in Deer Park and the surrounding areas had turned in their children's candy that they had got from trick-or-treating to the police, fearing that their kids' candy could be laced with poison also. So Timothy's autopsy would reveal that the pixie stick that he had ate was laced with a fatal dose of potassium cyanide, and that's what the police started to become suspicious of Ronald O'Brien, which Ronald O'Brien is his father. Out of the 5 pixie sticks that O'Brien had claimed to receive were uncovered by the police from the other children. None of those children had ate those pixie sticks yet. Thank God. One of the children's mother had become hysterical when she couldn't find the candy after being notified by the police. When the parents ran upstairs to check on their child had actually fallen asleep while holding the candy but hadn't ate any because he wasn't able to open the staples that had sealed the wrapper. So that was, thank God, that he or she was unable to open this candy and he just fell asleep with it in his hands. So by what pathologists who tested the pixie sticks said was that the candy that Timothy had consumed was enough cyanide to kill 2 adults, and the other 4 candies that contained enough to kill 3 to 4 adults. So the one that Timothy had had enough cyanide to kill 2 adults, while the neighbor's 2 kids, the 1 child from the church, and Ronald's daughter, which is Timothy's sister, had enough cyanide in their pixie sticks to kill 3 to 4 adults. Ronald O'Brien had first told the police that he could remember which house he had gotten the pixie sticks from. So police became suspicious because O'Brien and his neighbor had only taken their children to homes on 2 streets because it had been raining. So they would start to become even more suspicious after they had learned that none of the homes they visited had even given out pixie sticks. So none of these houses that these children had visited gave out pixie sticks. After O'Brien walked the police 3 times through the neighborhood, he would lead police to the home that no one had answered the door. So if you're to a door, they became impatient because the person didn't answer. Their father then came back with 5 pixie sticks because the kids went ahead and ran to the next house. Remember that. So Ronald had claimed that he had went back there before he caught up with his kids and said that the owner of the home didn't turn the lights on, but instead cracked the door open and handed him the 5 pixie sticks. The only part of the man that he had seen was that of his arm, in which he said was hairy. So Ronald just said the only thing he's seen was his arm and it was hairy. That was all he could give information about. That home turned out to be owned by a man named Courtney Melvin. And on Halloween, he was working as an air traffic controller at William P. Hobby Airport and didn't get home until 11 p.m. that night. So police would rule out Melvin as a suspect after almost 200 people had confirmed that he had been at work. So his alibi is solid. It is solid as can be. As investigators got in deeper on this case, they had learned that Ronald O'Brien was over $100,000 in debt and had a history of being unable to hold a job. He had went through 21 jobs before the death of his child, Timothy. O'Brien was then arrested and had also been suspected of theft at his job at Texas State Optical and was close to being fired. So where he was working at, where he was employed at, they had already had suspicions of him stealing from there. So he was on the verge of getting fired, and he probably knew it, and he's already $100,000 in debt. You know, wow. Anyways, so their car was going to be repossessed. He had defaulted on several bank loans, and their home had been foreclosed on. Police discovered that Ronald had taken life insurance policies out on his children months before Timothy's death. And in January of 1974, he had taken out $10,000 life insurance policies on both of his children. A month before Timothy passed, Ronald O'Brien had taken an extra $20,000 out on both children, even though his life insurance agency had objected to this. And just days before Timothy passed, he would take another $20,000 out on each child. So he had multiple policies that totaled around $60,000. Ronald's wife, Daneen, would insist that she didn't know anything about the insurance policies. They had no clue that her husband had taken these policies out on their children. Police also had found out that the morning after Timothy's death, Ronald O'Brien had called his insurance company to ask about collecting the policies that he had taken out on his son. Literally The next morning, he died that night. The next morning, he is calling his insurance company, asking about when he's going to get the money for his son's death. Who does that? Who does that? So once police had learned that Timothy's father had visited a chemical supply store in Houston to buy cyanide right before Halloween of 1974, although he left without making a purchase, when he found out that he had to buy a minimum of 5 pounds. 5 pounds of cyanide. So what? You don't need 5 pounds of cyanide. So he did not purchase the cyanide because he would have had to purchase a minimum of 5 pounds. This is when they had started to really suspect O'Brien, and that he had laced the pixie sticks with poison, trying to kill his kids so he could collect on their life insurance policies. Police believed that he had given the other children pixie sticks with the cyanide in them in an effort to cover up his crimes. So he was not only trying to kill his own children to get the money, he was trying to use these other 3 children to cover up what he was doing to his own children. He had no care in the world who died in this incident. All he was worried about was getting out of debt and getting money. That's it. So police would consistently question Ronald about the poisonings, but he insisted that he was innocent. Police had never discovered when or where Ronald had bought the poison, but he was arrested for Timothy's murder on November 5th of 1974 and was indicted on 1 count of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder because he attempted to kill 4 other children, which one of those was including his daughter. O'Brien would plead not guilty on all 5 accounts. So he said that he was not guilty of killing his son. He was not guilty of attempting to kill 4 other children. His trial would begin in Houston on May 5th of 1975, and during the trial, a chemist who was acquainted with Ronald would testify that the summer of 1973, so this is a year before, the summer of 1973, Ronald would contact him and asked about cyanide and how much would be fatal. A chemical supply salesman had also testified against Ronald, saying that Ronald had asked him about how to purchase cyanide. Friends and coworkers of Ronald's would also testify that months before Timmy's murder, Ronald would begin to show unusual interest in cyanide and would speak about how much it would take to kill a person. So he's basically already told on himself before he even did it, because he's went to go buy cyanide from a supply store and didn't buy it because you had to have 5 pounds. He had talked to somebody that he knew about how much would kill somebody. He was showing interest in cyanide and how much it would take to kill somebody to his friends and his coworkers. That is red flag central. That's a red flag. So, O'Brien's sister-in-law and brother-in-law had testified that on the day of Timothy's funeral, this one pisses me off. On the day of Timothy's funeral, he had spoke of using the money from Timothy's insurance policy to take a long vacation and buy other items. He is talking about taking a vacation after killing his son. After his son died, he's talking about taking a vacation and buying other items from his son's insurance policies. Blows me away. I don't understand. I'm a mother myself. I would never, ever, ever do that. Ever. Never. I couldn't even think about anything like that. No. So anyways, his wife would reject the claim that Timothy chose the pixie sticks, stating that, in fact, Ronald, his father, had chosen it for him and had forced him to choose it. So Timothy didn't even want the pixie stick. He wanted a different candy, but Ronald chose this candy for him and made him eat that one specifically. So still, Ronald O'Brien would maintain his innocence, and his defense mainly brought up a urban legend that was decades out about a mad poisoner who had handed out Halloween candy laced with poison or needles or candy apples with razor blades that were inserted inside. That's what his defense had came up with to try to prove his innocence. Wow. And these stories actually still continue even though there is no documentation of strangers poisoning Halloween candy. And you guys see all over Facebook, and maybe it is true now, but at this time, there was nothing showing about any kind of documentation that kids were poisoned or that there was razor blades and candy apples that the kids have eaten. But anyways, the press would name Ronald O'Bryan the Candyman, and his trial would gain national attention. So he got his nickname, the Candyman, from this. On June 3rd of 1975, a jury had only took 45 minutes to find Ronald O'Bryan guilty of capital murder and 4 counts of attempted murder. So he was found guilty on all counts. They took 71 minutes to sentence him to death by electrocution, and shortly after his conviction, his wife had filed for divorce. She would later get remarried, and her new husband would adopt her daughter, which was also his daughter, Elizabeth. According to a Reverend Carol Pickett, whom was a former chaplain that worked for the Texas Department of Criminal Justice, would say that O'Bryan was shunned and despised by his fellow death row inmates for killing his child and was absolutely friendless. So, he had no friends in prison. What do you expect? Wanted to cuss for a second, but what do you expect? You killed your child. You killed a child. People in prison don't like that. When you mess with a child, people don't like that in prison. They could have murdered somebody that was an adult. And guess what? They're going to hate you the most because you killed a child. You took away their innocence. It's just how the prison works. It's how it works. Anyways, rant over. Reportedly, inmates had petitioned to hold an organized demonstration on O'Bryan's execution date to express their hatred of him. Ronald's first execution date was set for August 8th of 1980, but his attorney successfully petitioned for a stay of execution. So, a second date was scheduled for May 25th of 1982, and that date was postponed. Judge Michael McSpadden scheduled a third execution for October 31st of 1982, which was the 8th anniversary of his crime, and he had offered to personally drive O'Bryan to the death chamber. Badass judge right there. But it was said to have been the first time that Texas had executed an inmate by lethal injection, and the Supreme Court had yet again delayed the date to give O'Bryan a chance to pursue an appeal to seek a new trial. Now, a fourth date had been rescheduled for March 31st of 1984, and Ronald's lawyer had sought a fourth stay on the basis that lethal injection was a cruel and unusual punishment. No, it's not. I don't think any of those are cruel and unusual punishments, because I think if you did something to your child, you hurt your child, you molest your child, you rape your child, you rape a child, anybody's child, anything to do with a child, no punishment is enough. Just how I see it. March 28th, a federal judge would reject the request, and on March 31st of 1984, a little after midnight, Ronald was executed by lethal injection at the Huntsville unit. Ronald O'Bryan's final statement was him maintaining his innocence and stating that he felt the death penalty was wrong. No, what was wrong is you killed your child. You're going to kill your other child for money, and you weren't even going to pay off your debts. You were going to take this money and go on vacation and buy other items, and you tried to kill three other innocent children that were not yours. It wasn't wrong. You deserved what you got. So he would also add, I forgive all, and I do mean all, those who have been involved in my death. God bless you all, and may God's best blessing be always yours. Whatever. Ronald O'Bryan was declared dead at 12:48 a.m. During his execution, a crowd of 300 demonstrators gathered outside the prison, cheering while some would yell, trick or treat, and others would shower the anti-death penalty demonstrators with candy. I am not anti-death. No, I believe if you did a crime and it is a horrible crime, and it is proven a fact that you are guilty, you can set your ass in an electric chair. You can set your ass on that table and get lethally injected. I wish, if they had firing squads and stuff back out, I would say do firing squads. Hang them on the courthouse lawn. Whatever you gotta do. When you hurt an innocent child for gain or for no reason at all, there's never a reason to hurt an innocent child. So let me just retract all of that. When you hurt an innocent child, you do not deserve to be alive. You are wasting air. You are wasting oxygen. You are wasting tax dollars sitting in a prison. That's just how I feel. Anyways, this was the terrible death of Timothy O'Brien by his father, Ronald O'Brien, whom was nicknamed the Candyman. I hate that I hate it. When I do stories on children, of course, it tugs at your heartstrings. It tugs at your heartstrings for anybody that was murdered. But an innocent child is just, there's something a little bit deeper that hurts. So this is the story on that, and we will see you on the next episode. Thank you for watching. If you would like to hit that subscribe button and that bell so you get notifications for the next episode. And I will get my podcast up and I will link it down below whenever it's done. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.